My name is Naomi. I'm 27 years old now, but sometimes I still feel like that scared little 19-year-old girl standing in the rain with nowhere to go. That's how old I was when they threw me out. That's how old I was when I learned what family really meant to them. A burden they could discard when convenient. I was always different from my brothers. Michael and James were the sons my father wanted. Athletic, loud, following in his footsteps. They played football and fixed cars in the garage with Dad on weekends. I was quiet, always reading, always dreaming of different worlds. My mother tried sometimes, I think, but she was weak around my father. She chose his approval over protecting me every single time. The day it all fell apart wasn't even that special. That's what hurts the most when I think about it now. It wasn't some dramatic showdown like in the movies. I had just finished my first year at community college. I wanted to study literature, maybe become a teacher someday. My father wanted me to work at his hardware store. Said college was a waste of money, for a girl who's just gonna get married anyway. We fought that morning. I told him I wouldn't drop out. He told me if I was so independent I could pay my own way through life. I thought it was just another argument, just more of his empty threats. But when I came home that evening, my stuff was packed in trash bags on the porch. The locks were changed. My mother watched from the window, tears streaming down her face, but she didn't open the door. My brother's cars were in the driveway. Nobody came out. I stood there for 2 hours in the pouring rain, knocking until my knuckles bled. Eventually I understood. This wasn't temporary. This was their choice. I slept in my car that night. The next day I withdrew from school, took the little money I had saved working part-time and drove. I didn't know where I was going. Just away. As far as possible from the house on Maple Street where I was never wanted. For 7 years I disappeared completely. No calls. No visits. No social media. Nothing. Let them wonder if I was dead or alive. I didn't care anymore. The first year was hell. I worked 3 jobs, slept maybe 4 hours a night, shared an apartment with 4 other girls in a neighborhood where gunshots were as common as bird songs. But I was free. For the first time I answered to no one but myself. I couldn't afford school, but I read everything I could get my hands on. I taught myself coding from library books and free online courses. Turns out I had a knack for it. By year 3 I had a decent job at a small tech company. By year 5 I was leading their development team. Year 6 I started my own company. Success came faster than I expected. My app, a platform connecting abuse survivors with resources, took off. I made my first million before I turned 26. Fancy that. The worthless daughter my father threw away like garbage was now worth more than his precious hardware store would ever be. I changed my last name legally. Not because I was hiding, but because I didn't want their name attached to my success. I wasn't a Henderson anymore. I was just Naomi Reed. Self-made. Survivor. I never planned to go back. I had built a life they couldn't touch. I had friends who chose me, who valued me. I had a beautiful apartment overlooking the city. I had everything they said I would never have without them. Then the email came. It was from a lawyer, sent to an old email address I rarely checked. My father was dying. Pancreatic cancer. Terminal. He was asking for me. My first instinct was to delete it. Why should I care? He didn't care when he put my things in garbage bags. He didn't care when I disappeared for 7 years. Why should his dying wish matter to me? But something inside me, that same part that still woke up crying from dreams of home, made me respond. Not for him. For me. For closure. I flew back to my hometown on a Tuesday. It looked smaller than I remembered. The trees on Main Street had grown taller. The movie theater where I had my first kiss was now a pharmacy. But Henderson Hardware still stood on the corner, its faded sign barely hanging on, just like its owner. I rented a car at the airport, a sleek black BMW that cost more per day than my father used to give me for a month's allowance. I drove slowly past our old house 3 times before I found the courage to pull into the driveway. Michael answered the door. He had grown fat and bald, his college football physique long gone. His eyes widened when he saw me. I don't know what shocked him more, that I was alive or that I looked successful. "Naomi?" he whispered like he was seeing a ghost. "Hello, Michael," I said, my voice steadier than I felt inside. "I heard Dad's asking for me." He stepped aside without a word. The house smelled the same, pine cleaner and my mother's cheap vanilla candles. The wallpaper was peeling now. The furniture seemed tired and worn. My mother was in the kitchen. She dropped a mug when she saw me, ceramic shattering on the linoleum floor. She had aged 20 years in 7. Deep lines carved into her face, her hair completely gray. Part of me wanted to hug her. The stronger part remembered her silhouette in the window as I stood in the rain. "You came," she whispered. "Not for you," I answered. James appeared from the living room. Still handsome, still my father's favorite. His face hardened when he saw me. "Well, look who showed up now that there's something to inherit." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "Is that what you think this is about? Money? Why else would you suddenly care after disappearing without a word for 7 years?" He spat. I set my designer purse on the counter and smiled. "I have my own money, James. More than you can imagine." My mother stepped forward then. "Naomi, please. Your father doesn't have much time. He's upstairs." I followed her up the familiar staircase. My old bedroom was now a storage room, boxes piled high where my bed once stood. I didn't look inside as we passed. My father lay in the master bedroom, a hospital bed set up where I once snuck in to cuddle between my parents during thunderstorms. The strong man who had terrorized my childhood was now a skeleton, yellow-skinned and hollow-eyed. 15 minutes, the nurse said as she left us alone. "He tires easily." I stood at the foot of his bed, unsure what to say. What do you say to the person who broke you? What words are enough for 7 years of silence? He opened his eyes. They were still the same piercing blue that could freeze me with fear as a child. Now they were watery, unfocused. "Naomi," he wheezed. Not a question. He knew I would come. "I'm here," I said flatly. He reached for a glass of water with trembling hands. I didn't help him. Let him struggle. Let him know weakness. "You look good," he managed after drinking. "I am good," I replied. "No thanks to you." He didn't flinch at my coldness. Maybe death makes you honest. Maybe he was finally ready to face what he'd done. "I've been watching you," he said, his voice barely audible. "Your company. Your success." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What are you talking about?" He gestured weakly to a folder on the nightstand. I opened it cautiously. Inside were printouts of news articles about my company, my Forbes feature, even a transcript of the TEDx talk I gave last year. "James showed me," he explained. "He keeps tabs on everyone. Found you a few years ago." My anger flared. They had been watching me all this time? Tracking my life while I thought I was free of them? Why? I demanded. "Why would you care what happened to me after you threw me away like trash?" He closed his eyes, and for a moment I thought he'd fallen asleep. But then a tear slipped down his sunken cheek. "Pride," he whispered. "At first to prove I was right about you failing. Then, just pride." The admission stunned me into silence. My father had never admitted being wrong about anything in his life. "I changed my will last week," he continued. "Lawyers coming tomorrow for the final signatures." "I don't want your money," I said fiercely. He almost smiled. "Not giving you money. Giving you the house." The room seemed to tilt beneath my feet. "What?" "The business goes to the boys. Split even. But the house is yours." I stared at him, searching for the trick, the catch, the cruelty hidden in the gesture. "Why would you do that?" He took a labored breath. "Because you were the only one who ever really loved this place. The only one who belonged here." The irony was so bitter I could taste it. "You kicked me out of this house. You changed the locks." "I know what I did," he said, suddenly looking directly at me with unexpected clarity. "I can't undo it. But I can make sure you always have a home to come back to." I wanted to scream at him, to tell him it was too little, too late. That a house couldn't replace 7 years of abandonment. That his deathbed generosity meant nothing after a lifetime of rejection. Instead, I sat on the edge of his bed and took his hand. Not in forgiveness, but in acknowledgement. "I built my own home," I told him. "I didn't need yours." "I know," he whispered. "That's why you deserve this one." He died 3 days later. I stayed at a hotel not in my childhood bedroom. I visited him once more before the end, but we had said all we needed to say. The funeral was small. Dad hadn't been popular in town. Too mean to the customers, too quick to cheat people on prices. My brothers gave standard eulogies about his strength, his work ethic. Nothing about love. Maybe they hadn't experienced that either. I wore black, but not for mourning. For closure. For ending a chapter I never wanted to read again. The will reading was scheduled for the day after the funeral. I almost didn't go. What did I care about a house I'd never live in again? But something pulled me there. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the desire to see their faces one last time before I disappeared again. The lawyer's office was small and stuffy. Michael and James sat with their wives. My mother sat alone, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue. They all looked surprised when I walked in wearing a designer suit that cost more than their monthly mortgages combined. Now that everyone's here, the lawyer began, we can proceed with the reading of Harold Henderson's last will and testament. Everything went as my father had said. The business to the boys. Some savings to my mother. And then, to my only daughter, Naomi Reed, formerly Henderson, I leave the family home at 427 Maple Street, free and clear of all debts and encumbrances. The silence that followed was deafening. Then James exploded. This is bullshit. She hasn't been part of this family for 7 years. We've been taking care of him, taking care of Mom, running the business. Michael joined in. She can't just waltz back here and take our childhood home. Where is Mom supposed to live? I sat quietly watching them rage. Their wives looked uncomfortable. My mother stared at her hands, saying nothing as usual. The lawyer cleared his throat. Mr. Henderson was very clear about his wishes. The house belongs to Ms. Reed, effective immediately. That's when my mother finally spoke, her voice small but steady. Your father talked about you every day you were gone, Naomi. Every single day. My brothers fell silent, turning to stare at her. He kept your room exactly as it was for 3 years, she continued. I'd find him in there sometimes, just sitting on your bed. He was too proud to try to find you, too stubborn to admit he was wrong. But he missed you terribly. Then why didn't he call me? I asked, my voice cracking for the first time. Why didn't you? She looked away. We thought you hated us. We thought you'd hang up. We did try, Michael said quietly. About a year after. Your number was disconnected. I remember changing my number that first year, desperate to cut all ties. You could have tried harder, I said. So could you, James countered, but the anger had drained from his voice. We sat there for broken pieces of a family that never quite fit together. Finally, I reached into my purse and pulled out an envelope. I placed it on the lawyer's desk. This is the deed to a condo I bought last week, I explained. It's in Mom's name. 3 bedrooms, walking distance to the park you like. My mother's eyes widened. Naomi. I don't want the house, I continued. Sell it, keep the money. Split it 3 ways. I don't care. James frowned. Why would you do that? I stood up, smoothing my skirt. Because I didn't come back for revenge. I didn't come back for a house. I came back to say goodbye properly this time. I walked out without looking back. As I reached my rental car, I heard footsteps behind me. My mother stood there, looking small and old in the afternoon light. Was any of it real? I asked her before she could speak. Did he really regret what he did to me? She nodded slowly. He wasn't good at showing it. But yes, it was real. I felt something loosen in my chest, a knot I'd carried for 7 years slowly beginning to unravel. I'm not staying, I told her. I know, she replied. But will you visit? Someday. I didn't make promises I wasn't sure I could keep. Instead, I handed her my business card with my personal number written on the back. You can call, I said. I might answer. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But as I drove away from my hometown for the second time, I wasn't running anymore. I was just moving forward. And today I finally stopped being the forgotten daughter. If you have been inspired by this story, like and comment what you learned. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you won't miss any of our daily revenge stories.